Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Council. I am Luke Anthony Walsh, and joining me is the Buzz Aldrin to my Michael Collins, Mr. Michael Brown. Michael, how are we?
That's some infectious enthusiasm you've got there, Luke. You know, I was so miserable until I heard you just shout out the fact we're on episode 12.
I feel like the more episode we get in, the more enthusiastic I have to become. So by
Yeah.
episode 74, I'll be like, episode 74!
Oh my god. So think about the 100 anniversary special. That's going to be incredible.
I'll just physically explode. NASA may be sending a thing to Mars, but we're here to cancel those important issues, and I know which one I'd rather be doing. We'll also be going over this week's headlines and going through your comments. So without further ado, Michael, do you want to go first this week?
Yeah, I do actually. So I was thinking that this last week that's just been has been a quite big week in that it's had Valentine's Day, Shrove Tuesday, and Lent all in one go. And I was thinking, I've got to do something topical, and I'm actually going to be cancelling fasting. It's Lent.
Okay.
I'm going to be cancelling fasting, and this is okay. The reason why I'm going to do it, it's not a Lent specific thing. I found this out recently, and I guess I've got three general points to make. First of all, I think it's kind of nonsense to have a period of fasting that occurs so soon after New Year's Eve, because you think about it, you've already given things up for your New Year's resolution. Like your New Year's resolution is going to do this thing, and then boom, then along comes Lent. Okay, let's ignore that then. But here's my second thing, and it says I found this out recently. A lot of I guess it's to do with the fact that if you have like rules about when to do something, people will just push back against it. And this is my example. And I found these two facts out quite recently. First of all, did you know that the average caloric intake for a Muslim household goes up during the month of Ramadan?
What is that in plain English?
So basically, it's a way of saying that Muslims eat more food during Ramadan.
Oh, I see.
Than they
Right,
do.
right.
And the reason why is because obviously you know the rules of Ramadan. You can't
They're
eat when the sun
fasting
is
from
up.
sunrise to sunset. Yeah.
And what happens is it means they eat these massive meals in the morning and massive meals in the evening. So I'm like, well, okay, so I get it. It's a real challenge, but at the same time, it's kind of like, is that really fasting? And then, okay, this is my other one, and this is my favorite one. Obviously, as you know, Jews have all sorts of things they're not allowed to do during Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they're not allowed to do is cooking.
Right.
And therefore, what they will do is and I found this out, they will get hot plates. And obviously not every single Jew does this, but it's a very standard practice. You get a hot plate, so keeps your food warm, and they will turn it on the last thing on Friday night, and then it will keep their food hot until Saturday. And then they'll be like, well, we didn't actually technically start cooking. And I think it shows how the problem, so I guess it's not fasting as a concept, but the idea of having kind of like a specific period where you say like, oh, I'm going to not do this thing in order to, obviously from a religious perspective, it would be like honoring God. But even obviously you can do these things from a kind of secular perspective, just like for the sake of discipline and things like that. But I think the issue is when it's not like just a personal choice you're making, but something you do because like the calendar or whatever tells you to, you inevitably get people kind of not really, missing the point because they technically obey it. Like obviously got Muslims, they technically don't eat when they're not supposed to, but when they can eat, they eat huge amounts. And obviously Jews, they technically don't cook on Saturday, but they still have hot food. So that's my issue, I guess. It's the idea of having, with regards to Lent, having a specific period when you say, okay, you're not going to do this thing. And I think human beings, by their very nature, are just going to look for loopholes. My theory.
I see what you mean, and a friend of mine came up to me just on Tuesday this week that talking about why they think it is a load of BS because when you if you take the religious element out of it and just look at the 40-day period, a lot of people set themselves and say, oh, I'm gonna be beach body ready, I'm gonna lose X amount of weight in this period, and which is fine. But you're making it a finite amount of time. So you can achieve that goal within those 40 days, but within the next 40, you're back to where you started. Now, there is an argument to be said where it is similar to Ramadan, is that it is a time for reflection and a time to improve each other's well-being. Certainly, that it's become more popular to take things up and to be more kind during their Lent than to give
and some people will do sponsored things. Like I know you'll get people like I don't know, giving up chocolate, and I'm sponsoring it for the Diabetes Foundation.
Imagine. I mean, but it's ultimately we're in a time at the moment, especially during the pandemic, where you know I think more people want to be kind more than ever. Of course, last week marked the anniversary of Caroline Flack's death, and the quote that will always stay with us is, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. So I think if people can be nicer just for 40 days in a year, we'll take it. And
Yeah,
it should be a precedent going forward for the rest of their calendar year. But fasting, I mean, it is kind of important, like especially for like blood tests and stuff like that, where
yeah,
you have to fast. So
yeah. Well, I guess I mean that's the thing. But then the flip side is obviously there's So I guess I'm talking about fasting over more extended periods of time. Because technically speaking, we all know that breakfast is called breakfast because you break your fast from the last night. Did you know that? That's
I
where it
did
comes
do
from.
that.
Yeah. So technically, fasting is inevitable because unless you're eating in bed, which let's be honest, that's a mood right there.
Mm,
But yeah, basically, you always have to fast a bit. But I guess I'm talking about more extended fasting. I think is I mean, yeah, that's not even getting into kind of the fact that arguably fasting, I mean, it depends on your definition of fasting, but like not eating food to the point of like becoming malnourished is
mm,
obviously not a healthy thing anyway. So yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the specifics, but I just say, speaking generally, I'd say that's what I'm canceling.
yeah, I'm not canceling it, I'm afraid.
That's fine, Luke. I don't mind. But what I do want to know is what is the comments we have today?
Comments we have today, only two from last week's video, and two very interesting points
Oh,
indeed. Of course, last week
I
we were
hope they're not
talking.
about Belle Delphine again.
They're not. They are not about Belle
Phew,
Delphine.
we're finally out of the Belle
Lily says
Delphine.
this. Do I need to get some baked beans? Was unintentionally a very British
Hmm,
example, which I thought was quite
I saw
funny.
that, yeah.
Thinking Observer said you should look up the film Spree. Pretty sure you edited out the part about Bitcoin on the moon. Disney owns The Simpsons, and they're known for having bottomless pockets and spending a lot on research and development for film production tech. They're definitely taking the 32 seasons worth of voice data and creating character voice AIs to make their voice actors redundant.
Yeah, by the way, you are right that I edited out thing about Bitcoin on the moon. I had a very good reason for it, which is that the for some reason the audio sounded a bit weird, and I was like I wanted to get it. I was trying to edit around it to make it fit, but it was like there was a bit where it was just like I don't know, you couldn't hear what you were saying. I was like, I could, but yeah, basically. So I do apologize, but yes, you can include that now. It was that Elon Musk sent Bitcoin to the moon, and yeah, you can
Yes.
include it now, and hopefully this time it will be because yeah, sometimes I do edit things out because obviously we use the internet, we have to,
Mm.
and it is an imperfect thing. But yeah, so I do apologize.
But The Simpsons using AI. Your take on that?
Yeah, The Simpsons using AI. That is interesting. I think it's funny because you could make a joke like that how a lot of their writing seems like it's done by AI because it's so
Ha
lazy.
ha ha
Um,
ha.
yeah, I think it's that is actually interesting because obviously you had the whole thing with Rogue One. I think was where it really became prominent of like this idea that companies it could potentially be a controversial issue. Actors now not only have to kind of negotiate their salaries and things like that, but also negotiate who can own their likeness because now you can almost I mean it's debatable and obviously CGI is not perfect, but you can reproduce an actor's face now, uh, and obviously that creates questions. And of course, yeah, increasingly it's becoming like you can reproduce an actor's voice, and I think it's not quite at the point where it could be convincing. And certainly the point I was making in the original thing I remember was that I find that the Simpsons voices as they are now are slightly off, and obviously
Mm.
the issue is I would imagine AI voices, even if they get close, would still be slightly off. I think
Yeah.
it would be. I suppose I'm not adverse when you think about it. It's almost like if you got kind of a sound alike, and then you just sort of used voice modification to just perfect it. I
Mm.
think that would be interesting, and I'd be because that's a bit like just auto tuning or something like that. So maybe you get like you decide, okay, Dan Castellaneta, I actually can never pronounce his name, Dan Castellaneta,
Dan Castanella.
Castanella. That's it. Sorry, I thought it was a T. Okay, anyway, Dan Castanella. If he, let's say, he dies tomorrow, and they're like, "Oh, we can't just cancel The Simpsons," so maybe they get a sound alike, but the sound alike doesn't sound perfect, and they're like, okay, let's do a bit of kind of audio adjustments. They can do that as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
Mm.
at the end of the day, it's not the worst thing.
So
So
same
yeah,
with Nancy Cartwright as well. I mean,
yeah,
it is a future they're going to have to face. And you look at the triple crown of animated sitcoms. You've got Family Guy, The Simpsons, and South Park.
yeah,
And you know they've been producing great content for years, but they are going to struggle in the next 10, 20 years where these voice actors do decide to retire. Seth
yeah,
MacFarlane, for example,
yeah,
he's brought Family Guy back to life twice already,
yeah.
and
And I've heard like he kind of hates Family Guy now.
it's it's still going strong and doing better than The Simpsons, that's for sure.
Mm,
And of course, we've discussed on this podcast before. Star is set to launch next week, which of
mm,
course will put Family Guy and South Park back on a streaming platform alongside The Simpsons in terms of popularity. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see what happens with
yeah, yeah. It
anime,
will be
because
interesting.
the only sustainable animated sitcom we have at the moment, unbelievably, is Robot Chicken, because
Yeah,
it's just stop motion.
yeah,
So
that's true. Yeah, yeah. You don't have to worry about
and
that. Yeah,
any excuse to get Ken and Barbie next to a Tyrannosaurus Rex, just cash
yeah.
that is comedy that doesn't need voice actors to be there every single week.
No, yeah, yeah, I get you. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. I mean, obviously, it depends on because even with, I mean, Family Guy kind of has a reputation for being like it's kind of different things have different priorities. Obviously, with South Park, for example, nobody would commend the animation of South Park because it's literally just a bunch of like blobs just wobbling around. And yet
Mm,
at the same time, people don't really like South Park for the animation. And in a similar way, I think you can make an argument like people don't like necessarily Family Guy for the voice acting. You can make an argument that, whereas I think so with Simpsons, I think Simpsons has always had a bit more of a sincere, dramatic element to it
mm,
than Family Guy, and certainly than South Park. So that kind of, I think, maybe would mean that voice acting is more important for Simpsons than it is for anything else, because
mm.
they do have like actual serious scenes. It's not just like you don't have a character who just gets killed 24/7 like in South Park. So yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I think that's I do think it will be interesting, the intersection between technology and the creative arts going forward. Who
We'll
knows?
have
Maybe one day we'll be replaced by an AI voice on
we laugh
Cancer
now.
Council 10,000.
We laugh
Yeah.
now. Let's just leave it at that. Of course, if Michael, if they want to get in touch and consider our council issues between our two well experienced judges, how can they get in touch?
They can get in touch with us at CAN, on Gmail, sorry, I'll just say CANCELCOUNCILYT at gmail.com. And they can also get in touch with us on Twitter and Instagram. And how can they do that, Luke? Via what means?
Through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can come find us at CANCELCOUNCILOIT.
Boom.
Come check us out. Come say hello, and we'll be sure to follow you back. Time for the news headlines. Michael, what have you got for us this week?
Oh, what haven't I got for you this week? I've actually got fewer headlines, but I think one of them we're going to maybe spend a little while on. So this is the first one. It's kind of a standard piece of actual news where we like to pretend to take news seriously. Senate acquits Trump for inciting Capitol riot, even as bipartisan majority votes to convict. So this is CNBC, and this is, of course, it's somebody not being cancelled. Obviously, Donald Trump will not be impeached, or he has been impeached, but the impeachment will not.
He has dodged
Yeah.
a major bullet. And what I find interesting about Donald Trump at the moment, because he's no longer in the White House, is that there is an argument to be made that the fact that convicting Donald Trump will not achieve anything,
Mm.
because it's not as though we can remove him from the Oval Office, but actually what we're doing is doing it retrospectively. So essentially, it's preventing him from running in 3 years' time now,
Yeah.
which he may not even do anyway, considering of his age and what
Yeah.
he's already achieved. So it's a tricky one, but I think I was jaw absolutely gobsmacked that he avoided avoided that, because considering.
So a little bit of context. I just want to say this has the biggest bipartisan majority ever to support conviction.
Mm.
So
it is remarkable, and considering the scenes that we did see on my birthday, of all the days for it to happen,
yeah.
is there is just so much evidence to prove that he incited that riot, and
Mm.
all directions led to what happened. So it's a
Yeah.
shame, but what can we do? What
Yeah,
can
yeah. I think, yeah, on the one hand, there's kind of, I guess, the just looking at it from a basic perspective, which is you would say he should have been convicted as a matter of principle because he did deserve to be convicted. But then,
mm,
obviously, there is the flip side of kind of like the, I guess, more utilitarian perspective of what does this mean going forward. I think
yeah.
the argument could be made it's not necessarily going to have too much of a bad situation. I don't think Trump is that likely to run again. I kind of agree with you. He's old, and I just don't think he can. I think he'd be. But the thing is, I do think he'd want to lend his support to somebody who would carry on in his image, and I think that's kind of the concern. So I
Who
think if
who would you suggest in that
I think
Republican nominee?
I think the most likely is Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. I
Mm.
think he's a bit of a crazy bigot, and yeah, I could see that happening. So yeah, in that sense, I think it's possibly. But having said that, the issue is you could make an argument. Well, if he was impeached, then maybe he could lend his support to a candidate anyway, and perhaps the people who believe he was like a victim of the establishment would be even more supportive. So it's kind of a question of, when you're looking at it just from the perspective of what should have been done
Mm.
to rein in Trumpism, would impeaching him have solved it? I don't know. I think either way, it's not too much of an issue, except for the fact that it just kind of reflects poorly on the integrity of America's, constitution and justice system when they can't hold their leader to account for this.
I agree. I'm surprised you didn't say Don Jr. or
Well,
we didn't
yeah,
say
I,
one of the Trump family.
yeah. See, this is my theory. I was talking about this elsewhere, but basically, I think the problem with Donald Jr. is that he kind of comes across a bit just like discount Donald Trump, and I almost feel like, in a way, it's kind of like he's too similar that I think people would just be like, oh, he's just trying to kind of pretend to be his dad. That's like my theory.
Mm.
I don't know if that's completely made up, but it's just something I can imagine happening. Whereas with like, a bit like how in the Roman emperors, they were very rarely succeeded by their actual children. They would just
Yeah,
kind of anyway.
yeah.
Uh, Now I've got some news about some cancelling news relating to Martin Scorsese.
Oh God. Okay.
He says Scorsese takes aim at, so it's not Scorsese wasn't being cancelled. He's cancelling something else. He takes aim at streaming. This is from IndieWire, by the way, I should say.
Mm.
Takes aim at streaming's lack of curation, and more cinema is being devalued by content. Uh, so basically, he believes that the streaming services, they're just bringing on a load of crap, and he thinks that cinema is going to be ruined and destroyed because yeah. So he says the cinema and the importance it holds in our culture has changed, and cinephiles can't depend on the movie business such as it is to take care of cinema. So do you think streaming platforms are going to destroy true cinema?
Let me ask you this: pre-COVID, when was the last time you went to the cinema?
Oh, I think the last time I went to the cinema was to see a not even very good film, and it was that Murder on the Orient Express film with
Mm.
Johnny Depp. I think that was the last time I went to the cinema before COVID.
And
Uh,
how long ago was that?
you know what? I'm gonna look up when it came out because I do want to check.
Because that should surely answer your point in that cinemas are struggling because Netflix, Disney Plus,
Exactly.
have such a controlling share. Amazon Prime, of course, in the next couple of weeks, Coming to America 2 is going to come out. Like it's not.
2017, by the way.
There
It's
you
not
go.
good.
Game, set, and match. I mean, it just proves that cinemas are on its knees, and even though we can do what we can to support it and go and see films, is that if a film distributor says we'll be putting it in cinemas and on a streaming platform, where you're going to watch it, you're going to decide to save the trip.
Yeah, go to the place where you can pause and have a piss, and also like where popcorn and stuff doesn't cost as much money. You can
Exactly.
just buy a bag of popcorn from the shops and just yeah, that is kind of the thing about it. I do think at the end of the day, I do agree with this idea of Obviously, I think the classic example is Quentin Tarantino, who seems to be nostalgic for the idea of like the experience of going to the cinema, especially like back in the day when like going to the cinema was like a proper thing. You get all these films from like the '60s where it's like 4 hours long and they've got
Yeah.
an intermission in the middle, and then
Double feature. Yeah.
yeah, and they used to have like cartoon shorts at the beginning and stuff.
Mm.
And that idea of it being an experience, I think maybe though it's possible if cinemas struggle to make money afterwards, it might be the case that what they end up doing is trying to become more niche. And it's like they do, maybe you start to see less of an economy of scale and more of an idea of like smaller cinemas
Mm.
trying to cater to, the people who enjoy the experience of going to the cinema in a
Mm.
slightly more. So yeah, I think that's probably the best case scenario, and obviously I imagine that would appease Martin Scorsese, although it would of course mean that you wouldn't get the blockbusters anymore. But having said that, it would mean that serious independent films would probably start to do better at the cinema, because like I say, I mean, what films are all the pretentious nerds that like the experience of going to the cinema going to be
Yeah.
watching? Probably not some crap blockbuster designed to appeal to China.
Mm.
Probably some weird Andy Kaufman film or something. So yeah, there we go.
Hey, Man on the Moon is
Yeah.
fucking spectacular.
Yeah.
Like it.
He does.
Have you seen it?
Yes, yeah. With Jim
Jim
Carrey.
Carrey. I mean, just I love that film to bits. Just
Yeah.
it's one of those films where you can show it to people, and they'll either love it or completely hate it, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
c'est magnifique.
Also, Andy Kaufman is responsible for one of the rare instances of a capable performance by Nick Cage in adaptation. But I do like Nick Cage is one of those guys. I think it's funnier when with Nick Cage because it's obvious when he tries, he actually does a good performance, which just makes it more brilliant when he just does a shit performance because you're like, he knows what he's doing. He's been good in other stuff. He just knows he's being shit. Anyway, so yeah, Martin Scorsese. Now we've got something from our favorite reputable news source, the Daily Mail. Have you heard of Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Name sounds familiar.
Yeah,
Do
okay,
tell
you
me
would have.
more.
Um, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's a congresswoman and she's famous for supporting QAnon conspiracy.
Oh, our old friends. Cool. On.
Yes, but also she famously argued that the Spanish, I don't know why I said that. The California, Los Angeles, it's all Spanish. The California wildfires were started by a Jewish space laser. No, I haven't even got into the big thing. Okay. Apparently, this is. I'll read the headline. Embattled QAnon Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene openly cheated on her husband of 5 years with a polyamorous tantric sex guru, and then moved on to another affair with the manager at her gym. So, what do you think? Do you think that, I guess the real question with this Marjorie Taylor Greene person is what can she do next that will make her? She's kind of got to constantly up the crazy because once you've had sex with a polyamorous tantric sex guru, immediately after claiming that the California wildfires were caused by a Jewish space laser, where do you go from there?
Land of the free, home of the brave, home of the stupid. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, we do constantly just add ammo to your idea that America is just completely crazy and nothing is
nothing is normal.
Can be ignored, ruled out or anything like that. Yeah, she's interesting. So yeah, basically,
what I love about her, and there's so many different characters within U.S. legislature and even North American legislature that they're trying to outdo one another. Rob Ford in Toronto is just one of my favorite mayors of all time. The weed smoking, loudmouth, just no fucks given kind of guy. And he's been quiet as of late, but yeah, what we need people like him in the UK because Handforth Parish Council, it was the first time that really the UK came up with this something interesting in the local democracy. So we need more figures like that. We can go, you know what, I'm gonna do what I want, and if you don't like it, then tough.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'll never forget when Nigel Farage was on have I got news for you? And they played
Fruitcake or Looney.
Yeah,
Yes.
Fruitcake or Looney. Because, and it's like, he's not a fruitcake or a loony. He's a closet racist. But yeah, that's kind of it. Basically, it's. I do agree that these crazy people, it's especially entertaining from the outside. I do think. I guess it's annoying because on the one hand, but I think it's good for somebody like me, and I imagine lots of other people who have kind of decided that the world is pretty screwed anyway, and therefore there's not much point getting invested in meaningful change. And from that perspective, it's much easier to just enjoy these crazy people. But it definitely would be, if we entertain the idea that it might be nice to actually try and get capable politicians who aren't just crazy for entertainment value. It would be good to have kind of a country. I mean, you know how like Australia was originally a kind of penal colony. They're just sending. What we should do is that, but for crazy politicians. So we should just have one country and just send all the crazy politicians there. And I think that would be the best. So yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing. I do think it's also weird how like countries with actual crazy like obviously North Korea or something, they're crazy, but the leaders aren't even eccentric or like fun. Like Kim Jong Un is a very boring dictator, despite the fact that the country he runs is weird. So I do think, to be honest, the US is obviously always going about kind of deposing dictators and things like that, and democratically elected leaders. What I would like to see is the US kind of appoint Marjorie Taylor Greene as like the sovereign leader of North Korea. So imagine how beautiful that would be. Or just like Canada can go, I'll fund it. Get Rob Ford to just go and sit on the head of the Kim dynasty. I think that would be beautiful. That's the thing. Yeah, because I just think in a democracy, I mean, where's the fun in that? But anyway, let's move on to our final story of. Unless you've got, I don't know if you've got a story. Have you got?
I haven't got a story.
Okay, yeah. So our final story, and I think this is. I like this one. It was in the AV Club, and this is the headline: 30 years in, The Silence of the Lambs, Jane Gum still deserves better. So just bear in mind that Jane Gum is the serial killer who skins women alive. So not alive. Let's be fair. So skins women after they're dead. He's nice like that, so that he can wear their skin. And basically, this article. I mean, I could read it all the way through, but I'll just wait. There's a good one. Okay, so this is one quote. Just like a booger-coated finger a centimeter from your face, the silence of the lambs is impossible to ignore. Similar examples of trans exploitation, films as guilty of poor taste as Silence, are forgotten and buried away in niche film circles. This one was handed 5 Oscars and added to the Library of Congress. Whether it was 20 or 30 years after its release, Silence remains heralded despite every criticism against it. And they said, yes, the director is masterful, blah, blah, but these aspects come at the price of consistently elevating the worst piece of fiction to befool trans people. So here's the thing. We were actually talking about, and I know you keep trying to get on a special episode of this, and I'm not ruling it out, Luke, but give it a minute. But basically, we were talking about this on the film review channel I was, and because Silence of the Lambs was released, and this is where you get this hot take, 30 years ago.
It was.
1991, and on Valentine's Day. I don't know if you knew that. It's brilliant.
Did know that? Yes, I did.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like when we were talking about it, I naively said, "Are people really calling for Silence of the Lambs to be cancelled?" Kind of skeptically, because what I'd always assumed is that it was kind of like you had normal people being like, sure, maybe the tropes are a bit harmful. Maybe the tropes are a bit like. See, I don't even want to see. The thing is, I think there's a reason why these tropes exist, and I kind of went into it, and I would like to talk about this for a while, especially seeing as we've got a while left. So yeah, basically, I think the thing is, I was expecting the attitude to just be like, it's a great film with a bit of problems, but apparently there are people out there going, no, it's terrible, it's absolutely evil, bigoted nonsense. So what do you think? Do you think Silence of the Lambs is a good film or evil?
It's an alright film. Controversially, The Shining's better. It just is. I do think that The Silence of the Lambs is a bit different, arguably. And yeah, it's just it hits differently, and really, um, it's one of those things that what it's I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's a weird situation. Here's my issue with it, and I do think this is kind of the I'm repeating myself from earlier, but it doesn't matter because I can get we can talk about this. So basically, I think something people need to accept is that there is an extent to which there is some behavior which I'm going to call quirky, but
Mm,
basically what it is it's not kind of your standard behavior of a normal person. I think it's annoying that the term normal has become kind of very morally, like the term normal has like a moral dimension attached to it now. So if I say like, oh, this thing that somebody's doing is normal and this thing that some person doing is abnormal, then uh it's considered like you're saying it's wrong. Like for example, I mean, for example, most people are straight. And in
mm,
that sense, it is normal to be straight. Whereas a very small number of people are gay. So in that sense, it's abnormal to be gay.
mm,
And if you say that, people immediately think you're trying to imply that this thing is immoral. But I will say, I think generally speaking, people who express their gender and sexuality in unconventional ways that are not just typical of your average person,
mm,
are going to be, can be accurately described as abnormal. Not
mm,
in a mean way, just in an accurate way. And I think it's very likely that people who are murderers, who are especially serial killers, are likely to have other aspects of their life that are weird. And I think especially with serial killers, so many serial killers have like a sexual dimension to it.
yeah,
Obviously, you have Jeffrey Dahmer was well, first of all, he was gay, but he famously like wanted to. Do you remember he like poured like he tried to like drill open people's heads because he wanted
yeah,
to make them into sex zombies or something.
yeah,
Like a normal guy, real cool guy. But obviously you have another famous example, Jack the Ripper.
mm,
Literally, like he murdered prostitutes. There's always kind of a sexual dimension to it,
yeah,
and therefore, and I was thinking actually, like the serial killers about whom we like know who they are, because obviously Jack the Ripper and Zodiac Killer, we don't know who they are, but serial
mm,
killers who we know who they are, probably the most famous one is Jeffrey Dahmer, and
mm,
obviously he was a gay person, which is fine. I'm not saying all gay people are murderers, but I think it's very likely that if you are a murderer and kind of if you've got some pathology of some sort when it comes to murder, you're
yeah,
likely to have other things going on
yeah,
with your either sexual or gender expression. And I think ultimately that's why this trope is always going to exist in horror films. Like, I mean, I say one of my favorite books. I haven't read that many fictional books, but there's a book called Ghoul by a guy called Michael Slade. Good name.
yeah,
Uh, and in it there's a serial killer and he dresses up like a woman. Obviously J.K. Rowling recently released a book where the
yeah,
serial killer is dressed like a woman, but I think the reality is that you're going to have to accept the fact that you can dress like a woman and I'm not going to judge you for it, but you have to accept the fact it's not an entirely normal thing to do, and it's
yeah,
likely therefore that you are going to see that same behavior reflected in other, well, in media about people who are not normal.
yeah. I
It's kind
agree.
of like you can't do a not normal thing and then
No,
get angry when that thing is portrayed as not
mm,
normal. It's like it's just going to happen. So yeah, that's kind of my attitude. So yeah, overall, I guess your closing thought on this news segment. Do you think Silence of the Lambs should be cancelled?
no.
Now, what are you? But I tell you what, there is one thing you think should be cancelled, and it's the thing you're about to say right now.
Haha. This week, Michael, you did say that this week has been a very busy week, but one thing that has
Mm.
caught people's attention is Britney Spears. I'm going to be cancelling Britney Spears
Because
because
she's fat.
because her new documentary has really got people talking, and she's one of those artists, and you and I are of a similar generation where early 2000s the world was our oyster. Toxic, Hit Me Baby One More Time, Oops I Did It Again, and all the other songs that she sang.
Yes, all of them.
All of them.
In the
um
shapes of your lips.
then
That
she
was it.
shaved her head, then
Mm.
she married Kevin Federline, then she went quiet for god knows how many years,
Yeah.
then she went on American Idol. Like it she's like in British standards, she's done like an Amy Winehouse, and sort of in the sense that she went a bit all over the place, even though her music is quite good. But in American culture, it's pretty damn standard. Like you compare Britney Spears to Lindsay Lohan as to how they've
Yeah.
been treated. Um, and obviously the new documentary examines how she was treated by her dad and her agents over the years. Your take on Britney Spears?
Yeah, well, I think obviously it's generally true that the music industry comes across as pretty exploitative. Reminded of Kesha, and like obviously how when Kesha first came out, the main perception of her was that she was kind of just like trashy fun. Like that was kind of perspective, which is not entirely an insult. There's still the word fun there, but yeah, definitely there's an aspect of oh, it's trashy, and I think the flip side is that obviously then you found out that she was actually kind of being abused by her producer. I don't want to get into the specifics of it because I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure abuse would be the best general term to sum it up. So yeah, you had that aspect going on there, and I think it kind of seems like a lot of the most prominent girl pop stars. I can't think what like term for it because obviously there's a term girl bands. Whatever the
Yeah.
singular equivalent to girl bands is, pop sensations. A lot of them, it does turn out, had really dodgy things going on. And yeah, so I think it is worth kind of having these having this stuff, this content being produced, these documentaries about these people, intended to reframe it and remind people that you know, and obviously it's I don't know how old Britney was when the Toxic came out, but I'm pretty sure it was like there was a thing where she was quite young, and obviously, yeah, you can look that up, I guess. But basically, she was quite young, I think, and lots of people were pointing out, it's pretty dodgy that you're basically having such a sexualized depiction of a young girl when obviously men are going to be watching and stuff. And I do think I remember there was a whole talk about like Britney Spears being, I guess, pedo bait, for lack of a better term, like the idea of like, oh, she seems so young. Like I'm pretty sure in like her debut album cover, like she was wearing like a schoolgirl outfit or something. So it's kind of like even just looking at the way she was treated in the wider culture, you can imagine that there was definitely like the people.
Britney Spears turns 40 in December.
40 in December, but when you think about it, it's 2021, and Toxic was when was Toxic released?
2004, I want to say. So she would have been,
Okay,
what, 22, 23,
let's see.
around there.
2003. Yeah. So yeah, not too young actually. I thought she was younger. But yeah, overall, I do think the point still stands. I'm pretty sure she. I can't remember what it was. There was definitely something where she was like dressed up like a schoolgirl. So there's definitely an idea of like,
That was
oh,
Hit Me Baby One More Time.
hit me baby one more time. Oh, when was that released actually? That's
1999.
Ah, see that? Yeah, that would make sense.
Somebody plays Popmaster on a week.
I know. Yeah, you're an expert. Yeah. No, but yeah, that's the thing. Like at the end of the day, I do think it's true that I mean, yeah, I keep going back to this term, but like pedo bait. Like basically, you've got a girl who's, I guess, so 1999, she must have been 18 if she's going to turn 40, 18, maybe even 17, wearing a schoolgirl outfit, being like, hit me, baby, one more time. That's pretty sexual and arguably violent imagery. So yeah, like with all of that said, I mean, I haven't seen this documentary. I think it would be good if the documentary does try and draw an analogy between like, hey, if our society is going to literally be like that's kind of thing. Our society has like a weird attitude towards like predatory men, and that like there's 50% of it's like, oh, if you're a predatory man, it's terrible. But then the other part of it's like, hey, world, do you want to see this 17-year-old girl be marketed as a sexual icon? And everyone's like, yeah, sure, seems normal. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, definitely, I'm glad the documentary's out because I hope it will be part of, I guess, a wider thing. I do think, I guess the thing is, so with Me Too, maybe it's, in a way, I think the thing about Me Too is it kind of focused a lot on the perpetrators, whereas I think maybe it would be good to see kind of a Me Too where it's actually more focusing on the victims and can kind of put it within the wider context.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully there will be some analysis coming out
The
of
other
this.
point we have to look at, of course, is where mental health has come in terms of the music industry.
Oh yeah,
Because you look at obviously her meltdown in 2007
Yeah.
Was widely frowned upon. Of course, it was only 2 years later that Michael Jackson passed away at the hands of his own doctor. And you look at now, you look at people like Lady Gaga, you look at the female icons of today, and what they've done to highlight these issues, whereas before it would be scandalous news, is it's almost normalized.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I do think like back in the day, I think it was like society. And and obviously Lindsay Lohan was also viewed as kind of like a sex icon at a young age. So I think it is true that maybe, I don't know, to a very cynical interpretation, but possibly not an inaccurate one, to say that like society gets angry when girls who they viewed as kind of young Madonnas, but like not Madonna in the sense of literal Madonna. I mean, not Madonna in the sense of the singer, but like Madonna in terms of like a virgin. Viewed in that way, and then they kind of have this weird breakdown because of all the pressures of like the public eye and that kind of stuff, and then society like blames them, like, oh, Britney Spears, she's a bloody weirdo, Lindsay Lohan, what a drug addict. Whereas I do think it's good. I don't think you have seen that as much in since. So you saw that in the noughties. I don't think you've really seen it in the teens.
No, not at all.
And I think that probably is because of people. I guess Lady Gaga, people who I guess have, I mean, the term empowerment is thrown around a lot, and obviously sometimes it's used in like a very bad sense, like people saying like, I mean, some people will even say, oh, Britney Spears being all sexy is empowering. But I think there's different forms of empowerment. I think the specific brand of empowerment of like being more honest about and not being afraid to offend the audience, which I think is what Lady Gaga's kind of done, and not kind of catering to hetero patriarchy.
Sure.
Is probably a good thing, and I think it's probably better even for the mental health of pop sensations. And of course, I mean, I should point out, you mentioned Michael Jackson. It's definitely true that from the mental health angle, obviously men get affected in different ways, but ways that are still harmful. And I think it is possible that the male aspect of it is there's probably going to be a lag. I think generally speaking, the trend recently has been that women's emotional anguish tends to get more focused than men's emotional anguish, just because I think men tend to, for like the reasons of like why men are socialized to kind of suppress it a bit more. So I think there's still a way to go in terms of how public figures and celebrities are treated. But I think that's interesting. We ended on a real highbrow discussion.
It's been a very analytical episode, that is for sure. Are we cancelling Britney Spears though?
No.
Thank you for your quite quick conviction there, Michael. Of course, if you want to get in touch with us and give your council issues for us to discuss, we would love to hear from you. Please email us councilcouncilYT@gmail.com. That is CANCLCOUNCIL YT@gmail.com. Also find us on Twitter and Instagram. That is CANCLCOUNCILYT. And come join us over on Discord as well under King Critical's multi-universe.
Yes. Actually, have I got the Discord in the description? I don't think I do.
It will be, Michael, won't it?
I will add it. Yeah. I am.
Good. Until next week, I have been Luke Anthony Walsh. That has been Michael Brown. See you next time on the Council.
Back at ya.